What's up, gang? It's Matt from Primary Complete. We've been getting a lot of questions from folks wanting to know how they can support the show. Honestly, it's crazy to us that people are even interested in this. But to answer the question, there are several ways. The biggest way is whatever platform you choose to listen to the show, rate it and leave a comment. The more 5-star ratings we get and comments we get, the more our show is exposed on these platforms. Another is just talking to your friends. If you're sitting at the firehouse kitchen table and somebody shares a situation or something they're going through, and you can remember a guest that we had or a past episode they may benefit from hearing, just suggest it to them. Lastly, if you feel so inclined, there's a donation link on the Primary Complete podcast website. We can't possibly say thank you enough for all the love and support that you have sent our way. It's humbling to say the least, and we are continually grateful.
How many dogs, before we get going, did you have in your house to start with?
Well, we had 8 permanent adults, and then we bred. So we had a litter of puppies. Like, you know, I've had 16, 17 dogs in the house at a time. Not ideal. Long time ago. We have outgrown this, thank God.
How did the love of dogs in the dog world come about for you?
So my dad is a veteran, and he was very resistant to giving in to me getting a dog. I wanted a golden retriever because I saw it on Full House. Awesome.
I love that.
I remember that show.
Comment, yeah, good way to start. So he was resistant to that, and I had to earn a dog, and to his chagrin, I did. And then I got the golden retriever equivalent of like Marley from Marley and Me, so he was awful. So it was like, if you're going to keep this dog, you're going to have to train it. And so I just became like a 10-year-old dog trainer by necessity. What we didn't realize is that simultaneously, the few dogs that we got were really, really helpful for my dad's PTSD. So we kind of like lived the mission before we made it a mission, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we just, it just kind of feels like it was my calling, if you will, because it wasn't necessarily a purposeful business plan by any means.
Is there anything you did? Is this all you do?
Yeah.
Is train?
So I'm also part-time instructor at UNCW because we have a minor there. So, yes.
A minor in what exactly?
Assistance dog training.
Okay.
Yes. So we have a 4-credit program that is 5 classes, and it's the only program of its kind in the country. So UNCW really took a risk on us and was willing to think outside the box in their recreation therapy department. And, yeah, we've been doing that for 10 years now, too. So
wow,
yeah,
that's amazing.
That's wild.
Yeah, it is wild.
Yeah, I didn't know such a program like that existed for college, like college students, stuff like that. Yeah. So if a college student goes through that or they choose that, when they come out, what can they do? They have to get back in touch with you and or somebody from the organization.
So we as an organization are internationally accredited. So by going through our program, because it's over a 2-year program, then it meets accreditation standards, so they can get a certification as well. So they get a certification in one aspect of dog training. They don't become magically like, I can do anything dog trainer, but they get one specific certification. I've had some students go on and do things in like behavior. I have students that go into like marine biology, zoology, those kind of things, but those are kind of the exception. More often, I have students that stay on their career track of wanting to do something in human services, be it psychology, special education, gerontology, recreation therapy, PT, OT. So they were going to help people anyways, and now they have this additional tool and way that they can help people. They can get a facility dog, much like Reese is a facility dog for crisis response. My students can get a facility dog for their discipline and use it with their patients as well.
How? I don't even know the order I need to ask the questions because
I have so many.
I have so many. So, okay, you want to ask one, and then I'll ask one, and we'll just...
Let's start. Kyrie,
yep.
Give everybody, the listeners, an introduction since we kind of blew right past that one.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm Kyrie Wisenhunt. I am the founder and executive director of an organization called Paws for People, and we're an internationally accredited service dog training organization that's headquartered here in Wilmington. We place dogs nationwide.
Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wild. And then to your left, we know this guy, but
I'm just Josh Baltz. I'm just a master firefighter on Engine 8 C shift.
how do you fit into this like whole picture though? She does dogs. What cool do you do?
Well, I met her husband, and that was pretty cool. Pretty lucky for me. Her husband, Zach, came out of rookie school to Station 8, and he has a dog through Foster People and Curie. And so we were just sitting at the kitchen table, kind of like what we were talking about, when we had dinner. You just sit around and we're talking things, throwing ideas out there, and we're like, how can, he was kind of telling us all about what Reese does, and we're like, man, how can we utilize this? Like, why can't we have him here at the station?
Right.
Right? Like, isn't that, how can they tell us no? It's your service dog, right? So, and we just started brainstorming, and we were like, let's push this. And then, as most people know, I'm an extremely squeaky wheel. And so finally someone just said, oh, my God, just go for it. No, but I got put on a mental health team, the department's mental health team, kind of right at the same time as all this was going on. Really, timing was perfect, like almost meant to be.
Meant to be.
And so at that point, we went to the chief and was like, hey, I have our first project. We could work on this. And he was like, let's do it. And we kind of, I don't know how... we kind of went about it in a different way. Like, I don't know if I should say this on air, but like forgiveness, not permission, so to say.
Yeah.
But let's just do this and so let's see what happens.
Yeah. What's the risk, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's so far, it's been one of those things that, every fireman, they find something to complain about. And it's the only thing that we've so far not heard anything bad about. It's like...
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's so we got
Just
him...
give it time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll happen.
Someone somewhere, but and again, I'm sure we'll get into this. It's not for everybody, but it's a tool that can be for people who might need it. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah. How did you guys know that your dad was benefiting? Like, were you aware enough at your young age to see why or how or...
I think initially he was more acutely aware that he was able to latch on to what we were doing. So we originally started with just therapy dogs. One of my pet peeves is people throwing around the term therapy dogs as though it's all encompassing of all dogs who wear a vest, because it's actually very different than the other things we train dogs to do. So we were just doing therapy dogs when we started. And I wanted, once I got my dog to behave, I wanted to take him and make people happy. So we were going to like hospices, nursing homes, and my dad was kind of my taxi driver. And we were invited to go to a special education classroom and help the kids meet some of their physical goals that they weren't meeting. And we got creative with the OT there. And that was kind of, he had a spark. And I think, and now that I've done this 20 years, I can somewhat generalize and say for all of our clients who've experienced trauma, and we work with civilians, veterans, and first responders. Trauma is trauma. And with all of our clients who've experienced trauma, they have to find the spark. The spark is a thing that gets you. You're in the bottom of a hole and it's very dark and you're by yourself. And until you have one spark of light, you can't start to get out. And so it's kind of meant to be that just what I was doing as a hobby as a kid is how my dad found a spark. So... we've just kept trudging along since then.
Yeah, I love the analogy.
Is that something that he verbalized? I mean, did he offer, I guess, for lack of better terminology, validation of the way you were kind of feeling? Is that something he expressed? Like, this dog's kind of doing something for me?
Yeah, to the extent that my memory is clear on those things, but I do remember those being conversation points. And it was in particular the fourth dog that we got. That was an accident, but... she was just special, and she was just like a match for him. And that's what we've built on, and what we do with the rest of our dogs now is it all is based on the match. So we don't match people on paper. We don't match people before they come. They literally come speed date dogs.
It's like a dating website.
Yeah. Once you've done it for a while, you can see it happen. You can see the dog say, yes, I will deal with your shit. You're my person. And then the person has to do the work from there. Some do, some don't. But so he was like our guinea pig without us knowing it was happening. Yeah.
It seems almost ridiculously simple to hear it, but I can't imagine from the trainer's side of things what a process would look like. How do you choose dogs? Do you have special breeds? How does all that, the only dogs I've known is lap dogs, labs, hunting dogs,
Right.
bear, deer,
Right.
beagles.
Similar concept.
Hounds. Yeah.
Different job.
Sure.
We as an entity, Paws for People, we do it all now. We do birth through end of life and people getting a successor dog if they wish to do so. So we do it all encompassing. We purpose breed. So we have our own internal breeding program. That's a department. We have team members who are responsible for acquiring dogs, doing health checks. What bloodlines do we want? What do we want more of? Just like you'd purpose breed dogs for hunting or anything else. And then we have a puppy development center where 3 to 16 weeks old, we have a team in charge of just that and what needs to happen. Then they go off to prison training programs.
You said prison.
Yes.
Okay.
And the inmates train them in their next phase. So the inmates have become under our curriculum experts, if you will, on that phase of what they need to teach them. And then they come back out here and they work with our college students as their third phase. And so the college students are experts at that finishing phase. And then the whole way that we train clients how to use them as a way to get back to the life they want is a whole program in and of itself as well. So we have client services department, we have training department, we have breeding department. So it's a lot of logistics and infrastructure. But
how do you separate the bond between the dog and all these training, all these different areas of training they go through? It seems like they would develop bonds with each kind of person or program that they're going through to get to that final phase. Is that something that you actually have to deal with, or is it just they're just like chill with it? Or
what's interesting is that we are able to control the entire life experience of our dogs. That's on purpose. So change is a constant for them.
Okay.
They have different interns working with them in puppy development. They go to a couple different puppy host families. Then they go to prison. They travel between 3 prisons. They have different inmate trainers at each prison. They come down. They switch college students. So their threshold of stress for change is pretty high. And that leads into the fact that for the rest of their lives, if they become service dogs with full public access, they're going to go somewhere different every day. When they're 7 years old, they're going to go somewhere that they've never been before, ever, which is very anti what normal dog behavior is built for. Normal dog behavior is built for repetition and habit. So we have to fight a little bit against their instincts, and we do that by building change in. And so we can see pretty young the dogs that don't have a high tolerance for stress and change. Even though we've practiced it with them, they just still don't have a tolerance for it. So that's not going to be the job for them. Dogs that don't like change as much, they might become facility dogs where they do go the same place to work every day and they have a work schedule and they have familiarity. Or they just might not become working dogs at all. So just depends.
What happens to the ones that are not working dogs that go to the glue factory?
Yeah.
I'm kidding, it's a joke.
So I do like to point that out because it is a big, important part of what we do. Industry standard graduation rate in our industry hovers around 60%, if you're being generous. So most places, 40% of their assets, if you will, in my opinion, don't go towards the mission. And all of us are supported by people's generosity. So to me, as the leader of the organization, I take that financial responsibility very seriously. So people aren't donating to me so that I can have a waiting list of people that want pets, right?
Sure.
People are donating to the mission. So we are constantly flexing our training program around the strengths and weaknesses of getting that number higher and higher. It's never going to be a 100. I was never going to be a brain surgeon. If that's what you measured me against, I'd be a failure. But we're trying to get as close as we can. So that to say, we do have a waiting list for people that want a career change dog. It's much longer than the amount of dogs we actually place out as pets by design. And then we have other tiers. We might place a dog to do, quote unquote, just therapy work. We might place a dog to do facility dogs have as much training as service dogs, so that's kind of apples to oranges. They're not a failure. That's the short answer.
Josh, you were saying that that Zach, your husband,
right.
that y'all's dog is his service dog. How did that come about? What did he do prior to did he do something prior to fire service, or did he come to having a service dog due to the fire service? I don't know anything about him, so
Yeah, I'd probably let Kira answer that. But he was a Marine for sure.
Sure.
You know, he was a Marine, and
okay, that makes sense now.
I think a lot of what he faced there brought him back here to look for a little bit of therapy, and that's where Reese came about.
Yep.
Reese is his dog's name.
Okay. So was it Reese and then you, or was it the other way around?
We met because of Reese.
Oh,
It's a pretty cool story.
Yeah, that's neat.
So it's the service dog fairy tale, right?
Yeah.
But yes, so he originally got Reese to be his service dog. And Reese does still perform tasks that directly mitigate some of his challenges. What's interesting about our veteran service dog clients is it seems like it goes one of two ways. And you don't really have a good predictor of the way it's going to go. Either we have people who have such a quick trajectory in their improvement over the first about 3 years that they probably at the end of that dog's career won't need a successor dog. And then we have other people who are going to be lifetime service dog users. And that doesn't really have a rhyme or reason that I found. It's not era of service. It's not age necessarily. It's just the person. So I think that Reese really helped to get Zach ready for his next career. And then Reese wasn't really working once Zach went to work. So as Josh said, when we were able to kind of make it all come together, it was like it was meant to be. And that is why Wilmington was able to start this pilot program, is because we had a certified dog and a certified handler ready-made. So all we had to do was the testing criteria for that we require of the dog at the station. So
yeah, it's way more than like, some people think, oh, these guys have just brought their pet to work. It's way more than that. Like often you have someone that has to come into the station, and Zach has to go through a test on how Reese does to certain commands and whatnot through the station. Like, it's not just, oh yeah, these guys get to bring their dog to the station and he hangs out. That's really cool. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and it's
pretty rigorous for everybody because we have $1 million liability insurance on each dog who's out working. So we have a lot of criteria to keep that in good standing. So all dogs are tested in person at least annually across the country.
And that liability stuff, that becomes kind of a challenge with us because, we have, how the fire department works. We got 3 different shifts of people. By the time, I work on C shift, right? So by the time it gets to A shift, they're like, oh, these guys can bring it. I'm going to start bringing my dog to work. Oh, if they can bring I'm going to bring mine in, right? And then they don't really hear all of the important stuff that has to happen. And God forbid something were to happen when somebody else brings their dog in, but we have all this stuff in the news about how the fire department has policy for people's dogs. That becomes a problem for us. So trying to get everybody on board and understanding what we're doing, and it will be more than just Station 8 gets to have a dog. Our goal is much bigger than that, but we just need everyone to work together and be part of the bigger picture.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know if have you ever been around anybody, Steve, that had a service dog?
No, not really.
I've had one interaction, and that's it. And I was teaching a National Guard unit, just very basic water stuff, like basically how to not to drown is what I was teaching. So, and one of the guy that was in that unit, he had a service dog, and we were at the Cape Fear River. I get him out there in the boat. We get up there to the lock. The dog's chilling. Like, I was nervous about the dog being in the boat anyway, just because I didn't know anything about it. And the dog was chilling. He was happy, enjoyed the ride. We get up there. He's like, well, I'm going to leave the dog in the boat, and I'm going to jump out of the boat and, do what I'm supposed to do. And, you just run the dog back up there to the dock. He went in the water. The dog won't having it. Was not having it. Dude, he spun around in that boat about 3 times, and he was gone. Splash. He went under, immediately popped back up, and beelined for that guy.
Yeah.
Beelined. I ain't never seen nothing like it.
And not something they've ever practiced before, for sure. It was
gone.
just like a real life situation.
Just gone. And they just ended up floating together right back to the dock, and I was like,
separating usually isn't successful.
I mean, it's funny that you even bring that up because, just recently we went to see Keith. Actually, he was doing a swim meet at UNCW, and so we went and we brought Reese with us because we were on shift. So we went over there, and man, Reese thought all the people were drowning.
Yes,
we
were
like, okay, we got to go.
Yeah, he's like, oh, they might need help.
Yeah, he's like, I got to get in there and help him, And Zach was like, he thinks everyone needs help.
Instincts prevail.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
It's neat that they have kind of that instinct.
They do.
Want to help. That's really cool. That's really cool. How would I'm trying to think of how to ask this question where it makes sense. Normally things in my brain don't make sense, so I have to take some minute to come out. How does one go about getting a service dog, or how do you start down the avenue of becoming a potential potential recipient?
Yes. So terminology-wise, service dog would be, if you will, the highest caliber of certification. And that is going to be for someone as an individual who needs a dog that can mitigate their disabilities directly. So every organization trains for different clients. Some places are veteran only. Some places are, we've all heard of guide dogs. Some places are guide dogs only. Some places are physical disabilities only. Some places specialize in kids with autism. Everywhere has their own culture. My biggest advice across the board is to find an accredited organization. Legally, anyone can call themselves a service dog trainer. And a lot of people, unfortunately, are being taken advantage of financially by having to make a deposit first and then either never getting a dog or getting a very poorly behaved dog, and everyone suffers. So accredited organizations are literally audited and inspected, and we have to hold ourselves to a standard of how we treat dogs and clients. So my biggest advice. There's about 75 accredited organizations in North America right now. So interestingly, we're a little heavy in North Carolina. We have 3, 2 here locally, and then 1 in the Triangle. So everywhere has their own application process. But speaking for us, we have a whole client services division, and it's kind of like adopting a kid. I mean, we're going to do a background check. We're going to do interviews, tons of paperwork, lot of clinical interviews. If we have any sort of mental health diagnosis with an applicant, then we're going to have to establish with a mental health provider and have continuity of care and hear their references and that sort of thing. So it's a pretty in-depth process. The dogs are valued at 6 figures at the time they're placed. So not just the fact that we're placing a life in someone's custody, but also financially, it's a huge responsibility and commitment. So it is a pretty rigorous process. Some places keep a wait list. Some places don't. Everywhere is different. But I would start with searching for accreditation first and then finding a place that fits you from there.
It seems almost like constant stress to be in the position that you're responsible for helping place these dogs, because it's like, I mean, you don't know. I mean, you don't know what somebody's going to do. You don't know if they're going to hurt the dog, abandon the dog. They decide they want to go on vacation. So what's going to happen with the dog? Is that something your organization provides though? Like say, hey, I'm fixing to go to Bahamas for a month.
Yes.
Y'all mind watching Sparky or?
Yes. So we have a very, very lengthy contract, and all of that is accounted for. And every mistake anyone's ever made is in the contract now, right? So what you can feed them, what vet care they can and can't get. If they get above and beyond routine vet care, we have to pre-approve it. We approve anything with anesthesia. So they have like a case manager, we call it a client advocate, that they have 24/7 access to. So everything requires permission, including travel. Sure. Whether you want to take the dog with you or whether you want care for it, because we don't allow boarding. So if you want to ask for a babysitter, we facilitate all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like
a lot.
T's are crossed and I's are dotted.
It's a lot.
For sure.
I think I always assumed that there was a doctor involved. Like if I was a patient,
right?
I'm asking you, hey, can I get a dog? And you write a script and it goes,
right.
Is that part of it, or I just had that? I made it all up?
No, but you didn't make it up, because people do that all the time. People apply to us and say, I have a prescription for a dog. And it's like we're CVS and they're supposed to be able to come pick one up, no strings attached, right?
Yeah.
So I always laugh a little bit, because very rarely are medical referrals actually educated about the service dog aspect, about whether that would really be an appropriate recipient, whether it would really be good. It's just kind of like, oh, if that makes you, if that sounds good to you, you should try it. And then the people come to us and said, my doctor told me I need one. So it's a little bit convoluted.
Sure.
But we do require that we talk to a medical provider, be it physical or mental health, and establish continuity and find out, yes, that person's compliant with care. They're good with their medications. They come regularly, all those sorts of things. So we require a doctor, but we aren't the doctor.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
And then sometimes we have to take dogs back afterwards, just like you said. You try to get to know these people, you know their support network. They sign all this paperwork. They train with you for at least 6 months, usually a year. And then still sometimes a few years down the road, they screw up in a way where we have to put the dog's welfare first. And we'll go repo a dog. can we just get the local police to go with us? And we go because our contract supports that.
Sure.
So it's never what we want to do, but if it's in the best interest, is what has to be done.
Are these contracts bound by legality? I mean, so it's like, a violation of contract.
Yes.
That's criminal charges against it. That's a good thing. It's
Right.
it's wild to think about, but
It
it's
is wild.
But it's a good thing. I totally understand it from your side of things for sure. Yeah, that's wild. Do the dogs have? I heard you talking about disabled and then mental health and stuff like that. Is there specifics when it comes to things like seizures and all that kind of stuff? Can it get that narrow? Can their scope of practice be that narrow?
Yes. So we have different certifications. Those are somewhat all-encompassing. Like, for instance, we have one called incident response. That's someone that experiences any medical incidents. It could be cardiac. It could be epilepsy. Any incident that makes them unresponsive. And then we have a training protocol that the dog would do to help with that. And then everyone's dog is customized. So, like, for incident response, different people get different buttons. Some people wear, like, a life alert, I've fallen and I can't get up button. Some people have it now on their smartphone, and we have to have the dog not be able to work their iPhone, but be able to work like the watch that talks to it or whatever the case may be. So
the dog does this.
So everybody's dog is customized.
My dog is dumb. You got dogs that can operate Apple Watches.
Yeah, I get requests of like, can I send my dog to you often? And no, I promise you, no matter how much money we would charge, it wouldn't be worth it. No.
If I was in the dog speed dating thing,
Yeah.
what phase? So the dogs are custom. So you match me up with a
Pretty
dog,
early.
and then identify my needs, and then the dog catches training to match.
Yeah, so you would have passed all of our application process and be approved, and then you get to meet dogs who are about a year old, but then you're not going to start working with the dog regularly for like another 4 to 6 months because we're going to customize it, let it grow up, and then finish out with you. And the people are the hard part. The dogs are the easy part.
Yeah, it seems that way.
Every time.
I would imagine you as the trainer, you're swiping right or left, not me. Like I'm not like,
got
oh,
it.
that's a cute dog,
Yes.
whatever.
I like that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're very well prepared by that phase to realize that they have no say. Breed, color, gender,
Name.
no. Yeah. Names are set since they were born. Usually sponsors and then tributes in memory if people get to do naming and the dog retains its name. That's in the contract. Can't start calling the dog something else. So, yeah, all of that is very set, and the people know that they're the consumer. And then we place about, right now, 1 dog for every 50 applications we get. So we choose not to keep a waiting list. We just rolling accept or deny based on our current situation, and people can reapply later. But the demand outweighs the supply by far.
Seems like it would get so complicated doing the list thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard some places. Say they do it by need, like who has the most need goes to the top of the list. I don't really care to be judging, like playing God and who has the most need.
Sure.
So that's difficult. Some people do it chronologically. You never know what works for them.
Yeah. So after the speed dating,
Yeah.
and we've been placed, like for the example of your dad.
Right. Yep.
What kind of time frame? Like the results just vary like everything else, or it's like within a month these people start to feel stabilized, or?
I think because we are unique in that we have a long training process. People have to come to us once a month for an average of 6 months and work with their dog a couple times and then go home. And they get to this point where they don't want to leave the dog, and they start to go back to real life and realize all the places where like I could be using them now, or this was better at training and now it sucks or whatever. So they kind of develop the hunger for it, and then they take them home. Then you always have a little bobble because they take them home and it's like the new and shiny wears off, and like you actually do have to get up early every day with them, and that adjustment. But I would say that we see people really peak or start to sustain, I guess is a better way to put it, like about 6 months after going home. Becomes more effortless. It becomes the routine. It becomes their new normal, and they really start to like reap the benefits. Yeah.
That's neat.
It's very neat. How, when it comes to fire service and the things that we deal with, how would a dog be taught to key on what it is that we're going through? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What I'm asking makes sense because I'm sure you're aware, but we can all relate at the table. I mean, it's not something that it's not necessarily, I guess it could be for some, but it's not like it's not a stroke or a seizure or, it's not anything like that. It's just it's just our retorted brains.
Yep.
So how does a dog key on that?
It's really interesting to watch the dogs both in that kind of scenario or with just a client, the same person day in and day out. And I think it's what everybody's pet dog is great at too. It's like they know when something's wrong. They know when you're stressed. So from a training perspective, we expose the dogs to that all the time. They're training with clients who aren't going to be their own. They're literally witnessing panic attacks, flashbacks, meltdowns. We're teaching them, now's the time. I need you to go give deep pressure. I need you to go sit in their lap. I need you to go lick their face. So they start to learn these stress curves and learn that we would like them to do something then. Don't be scared of it. Don't be shut down by it, but instead actually gravitate towards it. And so I think Josh can probably give you anecdotes because I haven't been there, but we have a crisis response team. So if a certain station on a certain shift has a bad call, they can activate, and our trainers and volunteers actually will bring dogs and puppies in training. It's great for our dogs and puppies to be exposed to kind of that de-escalation from a crisis. But simultaneously, likewise, you can see the dogs gravitate to who needs them most. And I think a lot of it is tactile. It's how you're actually going to touch a dog differently if you're stressed, if you're aroused, if your brain is, in the fight or flight or coming down from your adrenaline, versus when you're normal. You're also going to talk to them differently. Your body language is going to be different. I think your pheromones and your smell is different too. Now I can't bottle that and train with it, but that's just a reality of how dogs sense the world. So we just use their life training to teach them where some dogs would go lay in the corner or go hide because they're like, oh, you're kind of putting out static right now. We use experiences to teach them the opposite, and then they're brilliant at just performing it, really.
Have y'all at your firehouse or anywhere in Wilmington, have y'all had the crisis team come out to anything?
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to talk about that a little more. She just brushed on it, but she didn't give, half of what it deserves. I mean, when we first started talking about all this stuff with the dogs, this is one of the things she said, hey, we can offer this too. And I mean, that has been really something special that Paws for People has done for our department, as well as the surrounding areas. But basically, we watch I think the day we got approval and the day you put that in, boom, there was a call and somebody shot us a text message like, hey, dude, this would be the perfect opportunity. Can you activate the team? I sent her a text message. I said, hey, there was just a pretty bad wreck, and I think we got some people that could benefit from this. So, minutes. I get a text message back. No problem. I got volunteers on the way. I'm like, gee, this is crazy. This is amazing. We go down there. I think there was 6 or 7 people showed up with the dogs, and we head down to headquarters. They allowed us to shoot down there to kind of help bridge the gap between the firemen that we know and the volunteers that are showing up that they're unsure about. And I got phone calls and text messages after that about how much that changed their day, how it really helped. It's really just been special because it's a way of handling a situation, stress, without actually having to talk about it or actually face it, if that makes sense, right?
Yes.
It's just happening on its own. It's really special. We're not these volunteers. They're coming on, 9-10 o'clock at night on a Saturday night when they could be doing other things, but they're dedicating their time to come and try to give back to us. And they're not coming to be therapists. They're not coming to do anything like that. They're just coming to bring some dogs and some puppies and just try to lift up some spirits. And it has worked amazing. We've used them quite a few times now. As soon as something happens, I just get a message and we activate, and
So we trained a team of our already eligible handlers and just kind of prepared them for what the do's and don'ts, all those things, no leading questions, no invasive questions. They don't know why they're there. And then once they're trained, they're just on a list. And when we need to activate them, we shoot a message, where, when, say if you're coming or not. And we have a staff supervisor, staff on duty is going to go. And they just handle it. And I think anecdotally, if you're a dog person, you get why that would work.
Sure.
And then I know that y'all have discussed, all the stigma around needing help or mental health or saying that was a rough call or whatever the case may be, which I can't relate to and understand. The dogs don't need any of that, right? It's just like they're there, and if you're a dog person, you pet the dogs with everybody else, and nobody really has to know you were having a hard time. Like, it's just a common denominator. Everybody's doing the same thing. And, you know, I don't have to show up at 9 o'clock at night. I'm very, very proud that I have a team of people, and, you know, a couple times, not a couple times. It always is always on the weekend.
Always.
Like, why is that, right?
Always.
It's always Saturday and Sunday night.
I'm always
and
like, oh boy, I got to send this text, but.
And I'm like, I don't know. Like, they have lives too. I don't know. And there's never been once that
Never let
people
us down.
didn't step up. So it's been really awesome. And at the same time, it's helping the dogs be ready for their futures too. So it's such a win-win. Yeah. But anecdotally, we get it. Starting to see some research that really, we all know that the longer your brain stays in that arousal level, the more lasting effects you're going to have, right? PTSD potential is worse. And I think that's why we're becoming familiar with the fact that combat PTSD is so severe, is because the prolonged amount of time that people are in that aroused state, especially during a deployment. So if we can bring the dogs in and they can help with that oxytocin release quickly, immediately, and help you de-escalate faster than you would have otherwise, then we'll never know the ripple effects that might have for, you know, these first responders, but it's worth the experiment.
I don't think I knew that. The severity equal to the time or scaled with the time.
Yeah. It seems to make sense.
It does. It's good common sense, but I didn't realize that it was just past my common sense. You know?
Sure.
It's been real cool too with like those senior guys, right? You got the captains, the senior guys who are too cool, right? Like we won't say names or anything, but like, yeah, I'm fine. Really, this affects you. This is bothering you, you know? And it's like, then you watch and it's like, okay, here comes the dog, right? And they're sitting there petting the dog and they're hanging out with the dog. And you're like, okay, like you could be cool if you want, but I know like it's making a difference. And then later on they'll come up and say, man, thanks a lot for doing that. And it's like, cool. You know, like finally like helping bridge even the people who are too cool, you know, which thankfully now with everything going on in the world, that's kind of going away, which is awesome, you know, just because things like what you guys are doing out here, talking about it, making it normal. So that's helping big times. Thank you guys.
How do we progress this? I mean, it's super local right now, but how do we progress this? I'm sure you need data.
Right.
I know this. Yeah. You know, to be able to present this to other places, you're going to have some data.
Right.
How do you measure that? I mean,
what's the next steps, Karen?
But how do you? I mean, you know, if you were to come to County Fire, and say, hey, you know, I had this program, I'd love to talk to you about it,
right?
And you don't have any. Unfortunately, you know, your word just doesn't seem to mean anything as much as numbers and stuff on paper anymore. And so how do you measure the metric with
What Josh has helped us do is collect testimonials from people who are willing to share how it's starting to change. Because in a microcosm, this is a 1-year pilot program we got permission to do. And it's kind of like, that's how you start everything. You don't want to go too big. You want everybody to be happy. You want some testimonials, and then you can scale. So we have those, if you will, firsthand reports. I think most of our industry is just the unfortunate fact of what we do. It's to some extent always going to be qualitative. We're not going to strap monitors on and measure people's oxytocin, right? We're not going to get saliva samples before and after a call. Like, that's just not reality. So a lot of it is going to be based on case studies, on testimonials, and truly, and this I faced it at UNCW, I faced it in the correctional systems. Any institution is going to be concerned with liability.
Sure. So,
they just want to, as a common denominator, just see everything goes well. Like, you actually didn't put Cujo in here. He actually didn't chew up the floor. You know, he actually was kind. And everybody loved it. And then people are usually pretty willing to scale after that, because once you prove there is no downside, everybody's okay with the fact that it's just anecdotal because there is no downside anymore. So everybody's okay with the fact that it's just testimonial based. I don't think we'll expand to hard research just for the expense that it would be and the lack of reality in y'all's field of like actually collecting data, numerical data. But that seems okay.
I mean, I'm just a dumb fireman, but for me, it's like, it's not causing any bad.
Right.
So if it potentially can cause any good, then it's worth it, right? Like it's It's not hurting anybody. It's not doing anything wrong.
That's logic, though. How dare you? How dare you?
Can we talk about the noise confidence training a little bit?
Yeah.
Can I tell them about that?
Yeah.
So another thing that's been pretty cool, and this has helped us kind of start to now open up to, like I was saying before, A, B, C shift, right? It's 200 firemen in Wilmington, and Station 8 can't do everything, and everyone knows what's going on. It's impossible, right? So now we've started noise confidence training. So what they'll do is like they'll come every other week and do training where we'll set up at the station, we'll run saws. They'll bring like the little puppies in, right? So this is just awesome.
Just for clarification, for just the ones that they would be the...
They be pause for people.
Pause,
I'm
okay,
sorry.
it's
Yeah,
fine. That's
we're
fine.
just sitting here. So
Yeah.
pause for people.
Right.
They'll come in and now they're coming with all the little puppies. So it's like, oh, this is awesome, right? Everyone loves puppy days. So they come with the puppies and we set up like the saws and the blowers and the sirens, and we'll have one of the guys dress up in full firefighter gear little by little, and it's just helping the dogs get used to the sounds and the noise and the changes of scenery like she was talking about. And at the same time, it's dramatically helping the guys at the station. You know,
Sure.
you watch the people that you would never think get involved. You know, the guy who never comes out to do the training, right? All of a sudden they're out there holding the leash or giving some treats, and you're like, okay, this is awesome. So now what we've started doing is what we call Feel Good Fridays, and we'll send them out to other stations on different shifts, different stations. So now we're making impacts to different people, right? Like let's get it out there, get the program out there, make sure more people are understanding that it's here. This is what we're trying to do. This is, how we're trying to get you guys involved. And that's where a lot of testimonials come from too, because I'll email each station, everyone that was involved, and be like, hey, can you tell me, did this help you today? Did this make your day feel any better? Was there something bad? Is there something that you think should be different? Like, talk to me about it. And that's where we've gotten a lot of good feedback. But
Feel
Yeah.
Good Friday. Love
Feel
it.
Good
And
Fridays.
I think that helps a lot, because now most of the time, if we do need to come as crisis response team, they've met us before on a normal, low-key Feel Good Friday.
All right.
So there's the rapport there already, and that helps break down the stigma even more of, like, needing us to come.
Yeah, like the first time or so, and we went to help kind of bridge the gap. And then the last couple of times when we haven't done that at all.
Yeah.
I mean, and you judge it on like what, luckily I know most of these people, right? So I'm like, okay, that person doesn't like a crowd. Let's just keep it simple. Like, hey, just send like one or two people. Like, let's just do something small. We're not going to go and overcrowd this person, or, hey, like this was a whole station, little things like that. And it's helping them too. So that's what's really cool about it, because they're doing so much for us. And so this whole time we're like, take. Like, this is like, how can we help you, you know? And so it's kind of helping both of us.
Yeah.
What a cool program.
Dude, my brain is spinning.
I know.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how do we get involved? I mean, do we need to make contact through you or her, or let y'all together come talk to our admin and stuff like that? And
that'd be easy.
Like, what is the?
And I think Josh has already brought up, like, expanding the crisis response aspect of, like, this was bad, let's just get some de-escalation there. That's just a text message away. Like, we're happy to do.
Yeah, I sent a lot of that to your guys
easily.
already, and it was actually brought up at your last BC meeting that,
Okay.
hey, this is available.
Yeah.
We're here for you guys.
But because they see us all the time on Feel Good Fridays, they're more likely to call. So maybe we could do some Fridays. Doesn't have to be Friday, but maybe
Sure.
we can do that. Kind of start introducing ourselves the same way too. Yeah.
Okay.
And then in terms of kind of a wider reach, we are accepting applications actively for crisis response facility dogs. So that can look like a lot of things. We actually, here in Wilmington, have a dog placed with our DA, Ben David. So that dog's name is Potter, and he helps with like all of especially child victims and when they're having to do some of their interviews and when they're getting ready for testimony. So that's been really interesting. But we have some dogs with some sheriff's deputies and with some other fire stations. So we're looking, like, as I said, we place dogs, individual dogs could be placed nationally. So there isn't really a limit to the potential there. It's just buy-in from a department, and the leadership would have to be there.
How would what is the criteria to meet to be one of these people who goes through the training and is kind of, somebody who goes out on Feel Good Friday? How would you become that person? Seems
That
like a
part
fun gig.
Yes, so that part we accept volunteers for all the time here in Wilmington. We call them puppy outing volunteers, and it's not just going to the stations. You can actually, I can send you all a link to post in the notes or whatever, but people can sign up and show up. We have outings every single day. So it might be that you sign up and you bring your kids with you and you show up to one at Target. And you're going to find our big puppy van, and our staff member is going to be there, and they're going to hand out puppies, and they're going to supervise you doing what we need to do. So you don't have to know anything. You don't have to come to a class first. You're just kind of hands to help us wrangle puppies.
Sure.
And they're going to say, hey, let's show them this. Hey, let's do this. Oh, this one looks like it's a little bit scared of this. This is how we work through that. So you have that supervision, and that includes, signing up for our Friday outings, if you will. So we do it all over town every single day, and there's no orientation required. And then we also have people at our puppy development center in Castle Hayne coming there to help take care of the puppies, feed them, let them out, clean, all that stuff. And that place is open 24/7, 365. So we're always looking for volunteers that want to come out there for 2-hour chunks of time. That does require a one-time orientation first, and then you sign up for shifts. So anybody who's looking to kind of be involved or have that stress relief themselves on their off days, we have a lot of opportunities for that.
I see an opportunity for a daddy and kid outings is you sign up for one of these things and you go to a thing. But I can tell you what would happen with my children is that puppy is going to the house.
That's the benefit, is that they're unavailable. I always tell everyone, they're unavailable. We would actually pursue you with the law if you took one home. So you can tell your kids, I'm sorry, they're not available. But and we have people that do our orientation for puppy weekend homes too. So that can be cool because you don't have to get your own dog, but you're willing to take our dogs from Friday till Sunday night and help us get the dogs accustomed to a home environment, but you're not committing to a pet yourself for your kids. So a lot of people will do that as a trial run. My kids want a dog, but I don't think they really know. So can we be a puppy host for 6 months and have a puppy here once a month and see how that goes? And it helps everybody too. So.
And for everyone listening, if you're even on the fence about doing this, they're the cutest little puppies in the world.
Yeah, they help
it's
a lot.
So worth it. I mean, God, they're just incredible. They just give you their little puppy breath kisses. Do it. Sign up. Do it.
Yeah.
It's
they're
awesome.
the best part of the job. Easily.
Is there any downs to the program? Any downside at all?
That you have to give them back.
No, I guess so. I mean, I want a horror story. I want something that went wrong. You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't just seem like there's
they
much
pee
of
and
that.
poop where they're not supposed to sometimes.
Oh my heavens!
The only down
So do
that
my
I
kids,
have,
but I don't get to give them back.
Right. Amen. That's my
the
point.
only down I have so far, Kyria has to keep reeling me in, right? I'm like, let's go, more, give me more dogs, and she's like, Josh, chill out, man. We got to talk about what's next, right? We got to do this the right way. I'm like, put dogs everywhere, So there is a limit to what we can and can't do, right? So that would be my down, if you will. But
there's just a lot of procedures, just like I told y'all at the beginning, all the things that people have to go through, and there's a lot of rules because unfortunately, if you don't have rules, people do things poorly and disappoint you. So there's a lot of logistics. There's a lot of paper trails, just like y'all have with everything you do. We have to document everything. We have to come reevaluate everything. We have to run it all above board. This is far from bring your dog to work day. So it's a big commitment, but we think it's worth it for the people that choose to do it because they really give it their all. So.
And if you want it to work, you got to do it the right way.
Right.
If there's people listening that want to support with their wallet, how do they do that?
Yeah, we would very much appreciate that. We function solely on donations, grants, and sponsorships. So we have easy donations on our website, which is pause4people.org. And it has a bunch of different choices of ways to donate there. We have an Amazon wish list if you want to send the puppies some
Can people
gifts.
name dogs?
There's sponsorship opportunities to be able to name dogs, to be able to sponsor dogs on their vests once they grow up and get a client. So there's a myriad of opportunities there, and we appreciate everything because it's a very expensive endeavor if you're doing it right, and every bit helps because, one dose of preventatives is $20. So if it's $20, you just paid for that for one dog for 1 month. So nothing is too small.
What's your personal goal for the program? Where do you want to when you retire from all this? Where do you want to see it?
Goal?
Yeah.
So we just opened an 11-acre campus out in Castle Hayne. We bought that right before Florence, and then our housewarming gift was some hurricane damage that we got to add to the budget. So we're opening our dorm on site in 2022, which means clients will be able to come from across the country and stay on site instead of having to travel back and forth so often from wherever they might be from. So that's meeting one huge goal we had. So interesting to see that like 4 years ago, we all worked out of home offices, and now we have like actual campus that's beautiful and we're proud of it. And we have a place for the dogs to go. We have a couple more construction projects scoped out. You know, if I won the lottery, there'd be a couple more things we do to optimize our equipment out there. But I think having another larger campus would be something I want to see within my career time. This has really met a lot of dreams that my dad has had in his career time. He and I run the organization together. And, you know, when he told me 10 years ago he wanted to have a campus with a place to raise the dogs and a place for clients to come stay and a commercial kitchen and a dining hall and all this stuff, that was like a pipe dream. And here we are about to do the ribbon cutting on it. So he's taught me I have to think a little bigger. So, I think the next thing we're going to outgrow that. The demand is there that it's going to be outgrown by the time it opens. So I'd like more property, more space, and more infrastructure so that we can take more people off the wait list. Yeah.
That sounds pretty realistic.
Yeah.
I keep it realistic. I'm the realist.
Yeah,
Right.
sounds pretty realistic.
Yeah.
What about you, Josh? How do you, with your involvement in all this, what do you,
I'm scared to hear.
what is
All
your,
right. Well, I've been
yep.
trying to get her down here to start talking to me about what's next, right? I want to get another dog in the station. But no, my real, like, you know, we've all talked about this at work, like, hey, what can we do next? You know, I mean, I'm all about like, let's go. Ideas get started and they always get dropped off, right? Like, I'm not letting that happen. There's no way. This has been such a great program. So the pipe dream, right? The pipe dream would be, let's get a dog at each station, right? But it's impossible, right? You got people with allergies. It just can't happen. So our goal is to have at least one per shift. And then if we really could, have a dog per shift per district, right? We have 2 districts, District 1, District 2. And so now we know that we at least, you know, if the crisis response team couldn't make it at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday, well, at least we know we have somebody at one of the stations with a certified dog that we can show up and try to help some of this immediate stress relief. So now I'm just doing everything we can to try to get the next one, you know?
And a big part of that is leadership buy-in is one part, and the system that has to be satisfied. But the other part of that is the commitment to the dog, because the dog has to have a primary caregiver that signs all of our paperwork and abides by our rules. The dog has to go home at night. The dog has to spend its 2 shifts off being a dog in a family, in a home that we find suitable. So there is manpower commitment that, you know, someone can't mandate someone to do that. You can't twist someone's arm to do that for 10 years. So that's an important aspect too, because I fight the bias sometimes that a lot of people envision a dog who lives at the fire station. And while that would be super convenient in theory, that's not a life for a dog any more than it's a life for any of y'all to work 24/7, 365. So we need the dog to have a normal life too. So that's a commitment from firefighters who want to have that off-duty commitment too.
Yeah, we got really lucky with Zach because it just fell into the pieces to the puzzle just fell in, and it was like, cool, let's do this. You're already certified.
And that's why
you already got the
pilot
dog.
it.
Yeah, we were able to do it. So now for us to actually do it, the next
from
step,
scratch, yeah,
it's going to take a little bit, but
Sure.
it's, you know, like I'm going to push through. Kyria will push through, and we just got to get leadership buy-in, like she said, and we've got to find people who are willing to take on a dog's lifelong commitment. And be like, yeah, I want to do this, you know, and they're out there. We just got to sit down and talk to the right people. So far, we've gotten nothing but great feedback from leadership. You know, it's being talked about at, you know, those big meetings, and I'm only hearing great things. So I think that we'll get the support we need. The way we've been trying to target all of this is to have really it's not costing or it's not impeding on the department in any way. It's whoever decides to become a handler of a dog, it's their liability, so to say, commitment, right? That's the word. See, unlike you think before you speak. I don't. I just speak. It's their commitment.
Could be worse.
That was really nice of you. Yeah, right. It's not true, but it was really.
Could be worse.
No. So that's been beneficial, and it's easier for the department not to be like no, because it's not really costing them or affecting them anyway. So
Right.
Your idea of having the one per shift made me think that there is that immediate, like, after some sort of specific crisis, but then there's like maintenance.
Yeah.
You know, just people being around a good dog or a dog that behaves this way.
Yeah.
That seems like a good justification. You
Yeah,
know, like
it's
just for that guy that just needs it on a random Tuesday.
I mean, how long has Reese been going to work now? Like, I can't remember
God,
exactly.
it's been a while.
4 or 5 months probably. And I think that Station 8 C shift would say that their work environment is very different than anybody else, just because there's constantly a dog at the station. It doesn't have to be a special request. It doesn't have to be something bad happen. It's just always part of what now makes up their work culture on a normal day. I don't see how that can't change things. So
It's been crazy. Like, and let me tell you something. Like, Reese, I'm not his handler. He's not trained to know me or understand me, right? But there's definitely days where I go to work and, like, I got a lot going on. Maybe my wife and I are in a pickle, right? And I'm like, oh, you know, and I just weigh in some stress, right? And I'll be sitting there, and there has been days where he comes up and he's nudging me with his, his snout there right into my leg, and I'm like, he knows that I need to give him attention to distract me from what's going on, and having that at the station is just crazy. It's awesome. And I also want to say, you said a second ago, my idea. I have to make sure everyone understands this is far from my idea. The guys at the station, like this is Station 8 as a whole, have been working on this tremendously. Like all 8 of us have been putting in a lot of work, a lot of time, all the taking notes and making sure things are documented. Like that's more than just me. Nothing is ever just my idea. I just want to make sure I clarify that.
Sure. I mean, those guys that's really cool that everybody's in.
Oh yeah, you have to, and that's what it's all about, right? That's why we have such a great thing going, I think, out there at Station 8, because everybody's on board with everything. You come to us with an idea, we're going to support you. But those guys, this whole thing was thought of together and took all of us to make it happen.
Yeah, it's taking all of them, making sure it's a success so that nobody has anything to point to as a downside.
I'm just a squeaky wheel.
Right.
You get shit done. That's true.
Nice.
Y'all have definitely been a pleasure to
Thank
have
you.
on here. I need a list of social media contacts so
Okay.
you can start. Go, ready, go.
Oh, at Pause for People.
There we go.
Okay.
No, well, do y'all have social media platforms where people can go find you? Do you on Facebook,
so
on Instagram?
I mean, corporately,
sure.
Instagram and Facebook are
All right.
the largest. The young kids that I have,
Right.
they also are like, they have a TikTok for Pause for People.
That's
but,
what's up.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know what to do with it if I tried. So I'm aging out of all that stuff.
And that's just Pause for People?
With the number 4.
Pause for People with the number 4.
Yep.
That's okay.
You can find us.
All right. What about if somebody if they want to volunteer, or does that all go through the corporate
Yep, on
stuff first?
pauseforpeople.org, our main website,
Okay.
there's going to be like a volunteer tab, and you can fill out a contact form, and someone will get back to you.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. All right. Well, I'll make sure I put all that in the show notes as
Great.
well.
That'll be awesome.
Fantastic. Anything else?
Oh man, this has been fun. I've learned a lot.
You going to text us to come bring the dogs down?
Yep.
Yes,
All right.
anytime.
All right. We'll
I'll
be
take the
waiting.
studio to you.
All
If
right.
you want.
Cool.
For sure. Kira, Josh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
thanks,
seriously.
guys.
Thank
Yeah.
you guys for having
Yeah.
us.
Absolutely.